So having an understanding of yourself as a leader and linking that to people's behavioural preferences, that's one thing. But being able to flex your style to best suit the individuals and the teams that you lead in a specific task or scenario adds another layer of complexity to your thinking and behavioural choices. So to do this, it's important to understand the two elements about individuals that you're assigning work to. And those elements are, firstly, how skillful are they in a task or a scenario? So their competence level. And secondly, how aware are they of their level of skill, their consciousness level? So for those of you who may not be so familiar with this particular model, competence is a function of the person's task knowledge and skills gained either through formal education, on the job training, or just sheer kind of experience. And in determining a person's competence level, then leaders need to consider the person's knowledge of the organisation, as well as any transferable skills they may have, planning, time management, interpersonal skills, etc., that are all kind of important for the accomplishment of a specific task or scenario. Consciousness, that's what drives the person's motivation and confidence. The motivation is the person's interest and enthusiasm for the task and that desire to succeed. And the confidence is that person's sense of security, of self-assuredness, if you like, the extent to which they believe and trust that they've got those abilities to deliver this task. So if we look now at each one of these four quadrants in turn, starting with that kind of low competence and low consciousness quadrant, what we call the unconsciously incompetent. So this is the first stage of competence development journey. And this is where a person doesn't know the extent of the learning journey that lies ahead of them. So when presented with a task or scenario they know a little bit about, it can seem quite easy because they don't fully understand the skills that are needed. And a simple example of this is driving a car. When someone decides they want to learn to drive, well, how hard can it be when millions of people around the world all drive? It can't be that difficult. And that's what we call the unconsciously incompetent stage. People still have high confidence, but their skill level, actually, unbeknown to them, is quite low. Yeah, I'd actually, at this stage, people need a bit of careful supervision. They need step-by-step instruction. Really, they need to be taught because they haven't got that skills, that knowledge at this stage to be able to complete that task. They may be highly motivated to do it, but they haven't got the skill level at this stage. So therefore, we need to give them more instruction about it. It's a little bit like when driving, the driving instructor tells you at this stage, when you're just starting out to drive, they tell you why you stalled the car, what you actually did that stalled the car. So it's the blue style that we use there. If we go to the next stage on the journey, where it's low competence, high consciousness. So this is where you've now got some experience and you actually realise the extent of the learning journey that's ahead of you. And when presented with a task at this stage, you can start to feel a little bit overwhelmed with the kind of perceived enormity of the task, of the skills, that gap between the skills you've actually got and the required skills level. And you can become a little bit self-doubting. So at this stage, it's labelled the consciously incompetent. They don't have the skills, but they now know they don't have the skills. It's the green one. So this is where the driving instructor now asks you, they've told you previously why you stalled the car, but now they're asking you to help to start to build your confidence and show you what you do actually already know and start to build a little bit of confidence. So if we move into our third stage, then in our third stage, we're now in the consciously competent. So the person has a high level of competence to be able to complete the task, but they need to consciously think about what they are doing. They know what to do, and they've got some success in doing it, maybe not consistently. So it means that their confidence levels can actually vary from task to task, scenario to scenario. So at this stage, again, thinking about the car example, it's a little bit like learning to drive. You've passed your test and you're quite confident driving in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, for example. But when it comes to actually going on the dual carriageways, the highways, 70 miles an hour, speed limit roads, you're not quite as confident. Because people at this stage need encouragement. They need to be shown that they can do things. And they need just to kind of to have that support there in case they've got any questions, somebody really to encourage them, give them a gentle assertive push from time to time when they need it. So that's our yellow style there. Then moving into the last style, high competence, high consciousness. So the person now has a level of competence to be able to complete the task without really even having to think so hard about it. It's almost becoming an automated kind of process. They know what to do and have got success consistently in doing it. So that leads to a high level of confidence as well in their abilities. So this is an example using the car. It's when you get in your car, you turn the engine on, and the next thing that you're really aware of is you've arrived at your destination. You haven't consciously had to think about changing gear, checking mirrors, doing this, doing that, etc. throughout. There's our model, and we can see how the leadership kind of styles match into that model and how we as leaders need to have that agility depending on the situation. There's people involved to be able to move through those 4 different styles.